Okay, the next thing that I want to cover is the transitional elements in the body of a speech. So, the simplest form of a transition in a speech is simply going to restate the label of the point that came before it and then state the label of the next point that is going to be happening next. So, let's say that we are talking about hip hop on the East Coast. Next point is on hip hop in the South. Then you would say something like this. You'd probably be located somewhere to the left or the right in your room because you're on main point one, and you would say, we just talked about hip hop in the East Coast. Then you would move. Next, we'll talk about hip hop in the South. Then you deliver your whole speech on the South. Then between main points 2 and 3, you would transition orally with, we just talked about hip hop in the South. Next, let's talk about hip hop on the West Coast. So those transitions are there to remind the audience of what you've covered. It's easy for an audience to get lost when you've got 6 to 8 minutes worth of content coming at them. But if every once in a while you can pause and say, we've just talked about this thing, they go, oh yeah, that's right. That's what we were. That's how all this stuff is connected. Next, let's talk about the next thing. And so I use an analogy. Sometimes I go into my kids' room and there's toys everywhere. They've been having a play date maybe. And when I look in the room and I see these toys everywhere, it's just like a cacophony. It almost feels like noise to me. And it just feels overwhelming. But when the kids are done playing, what they'll do is they'll take their things and start to put it in their little toy boxes, their little miniature. We have little Tupperware things actually kind of that they use. And so they put their dolls in one, they might put their Legos in another, their puzzle pieces in another, and they start to categorize and put the things away in boxes. That's what we want to do with our information. Main point 1 is one kind of box, we put all that information there. Main point 2 is another kind of box, we put that stuff there. Main point 3 is another box, we put that stuff there. It helps your audience to be able to remember. All right, so that's why we have those main points, and the transitions are there to remind the audience. And then also you'll see that I'm trying to coach you on moving between them. And so in a bigger room right now, I'm sitting down. And so I'm doing the old Sesame Street across the screen as I'm teaching you, but you would really actually be standing up. Don't deliver your speeches while sitting down. You'd be standing up somewhere over here. Let's imagine that this is a person and they're over here and they're talking. Then they're done with that. We've just talked about main point 1. Next, let's talk about main point 2. And don't use main point 1 and main point 2. Use the actual label. We just talked about snowboarding in the mountains. Next, let's talk about surfing in the oceans, right? So they're moving each time. Why? Well, one, when you change position, it refreshes the audience's interest in you. It's not quite like getting a new speaker up, but it is changing your position and making you a little more interesting. 2, it actually helps people to remember, oh, I remember when I was learning this, the person was over here by their teddy bear. And it helps them to remember that. Oh, and then on this point, I can kind of remember that's where they had their little, their like cup right in front of them. And so it's visually giving them new ways to be able to remember. And in addition, if this were an actual classroom or a stadium or something like that, what you're doing is when you change your position, you're also changing your zone of interaction, which means that you're more likely to start talking to people. If I'm over on the left side of the stage, I'm more likely to actually pay attention to the people on the left side. If I'm in the center, I'm more likely to pay attention to the center. If I'm on the, I think I said left over, so right side, if I'm over there, then I'm more likely to pay attention. So what it does is it actually, because we tend to only speak to people in this like triangle. We don't tend to like put tension in our neck as we're speaking. We tend to only speak to people that are here. And so if we go over here, we capture new people in that zone of interaction. Or over here, we capture new people. All right, so that's another reason why we actually want to change. All right. I feel like I need to create a new video for different types of transitions now. That was kind of the purposes of transitions. And the one that most of you will use is the look back, look forward, simply state the previous label and then state the upcoming label, and you'll be done with that. All right.